Benvenuti su Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, un podcast di Bocconi alunni in cui ascolteremo storie professionali di eccellenza. L'ospite di oggi è Luca de Meo, CEO Group Renault.
For a kid from the south, without a lot of possibility, entering Bocconi has been, one of the sliding doors that sometimes you have the chance, and the luck to take. For sure. So opened up a lot in a completely new perspective, a lot of possibility. So it was actually very exclusive in the 80s to, also the university was much smaller than it is today. So there were not many chances, a lot of aspiration. I actually still ask myself how I could get into the thing, right? But I did, and it changed a lot, really. I don't think there's one recipe for call it success of progressing in your career. Of course, everyone has its own at the end of the day. Some elements might be, common. I think that you get there, you need a lot of work, that's for sure. You need resilience, you need a lot of motivation. In my case, I was, let's say, lucky enough to actually have made of my passion when I was a kid my job. I was completely obsessed with cars since I was a kid, and drawing cars and recognizing cars from 10 kilometers away. That was my thing, right? So I had all the collection of quattro ruote, for 20 years, and reading them until the last page. That was my thing. So I think this is a privilege, right? So it's like you are a priest or a diplomat or or a doctor or a footballer, a sportsman, etc. It's kind of a vocational thing. And I don't think everybody has this chance. So I think that was my first thing. So I have a lot of passion for what I do. I really like, what I do. Yeah. And the second thing is that's a little bit my way of doing things. I actually always try to be competent on what I'm doing. So I never played any political game, any relationship, I always try to do my job by being the one that knows the topic better when we enter in a room for a meeting. Sometimes it works, sometimes I find people that are even better than me, but I try to learn and improve, etc., etc. So I think, I think there is a positive thing because an example like mine where I have, I didn't have any advantage at the end. I could actually make it because I knew what I was talking about. And this is the whole idea of meritocracy and etc., which I believe is something that sometimes is kind of forgotten, right? So, and maybe blurred on other things. And this is also good because I think it's one of the values that you learn at Bocconi, right? You know that better than me. And one of the things you learn at Bocconi is that you have to work hard, you need to be competent, and there's no politics into the thing, right? You get into the university if you get through the test. It's not because you are a friend of this or a friend of the other. I was speaking with Cerrone Saturday that tells the story about his kid that didn't enter Bocconi. And I think it's very symbolic, and it shows the spirit of the institution, meritocracy. And I try always to do my best to be prepared. And if I don't know, I kind of get into the thing until I know. I think Bocconi is very fashionable here. I hear a lot of kids that from people I know that want to get in, and so I think we should be proud of our university. For sure, I'll try to make it, a bit structured and short the answer, but for sure we are experiencing a time that I haven't seen for the last 30 years. So our industry was always very complex, very tough, etc. But the speed of the transformation, the acceleration in the last 10 years has been something unseen before. And, what you have to understand is that automotive is kind of, let's say, unfairly seen as old economy kind of thing, which is a concept that I completely reject, because I know how many things we're doing on innovation and technology. Just to give you a number, 1/3 of the R&D budget in Europe is in the budgets of OEMs and their supplier. 1/3. Okay, so without the investment in R&D coming from automotive, I mean, Europe would be ranking far below into any international ranking. I mean, I'm going to defend my industry. There are a lot of things, but even in innovation side, the let's say we wait very very much, and people think that we are a bunch of dinosaurs that don't want to change, etc. That are not investing and always milking the same technology and the same business model. It's not true. I just want to say it clearly. The problem is that in the food chain, the role of automotive, we never get the cotillons and the spotlights because we never come first on one technology. It's always the defense industry, aerospace industry, the tech, the pharma, the thing. What our role is to come second, and when we come on a technology, then what happens is that two things. One is we make this technology serious, solid, and reliable. Because we cannot put a technology on a car that needs to last 15 years, where you have, people in, kids, and every condition, etc. So you can't imagine how many tests we have to do more than Apple to simply put a screen on a car. Yeah. It's 10 times what they have to do before they get to the market with the product. Okay, and I can mention many of these things. The second thing we do, because the scale of our manufacturing footprint is so complex and big, normally we actually reduce dramatically the cost. So we make technology accessible. And I'm going to give you two examples to visualize the thing. One is, I take this phone, okay, and I put 6 of those phones on the table. Maybe I get to an iPad size screen. For the same price, I give you all car, the whole thing. Okay, it tells you the level of efficiency and value that we can bring into a product. Okay, this is the magic of automotive, and I believe that everybody has to understand that we need automotive in Europe because it's a kind of a locomotive for a lot of things. We are at the crossroads. We are kind of place de l'étoile of the industry. Everybody gets in and out, etc., etc. So it's a transformation. I think that we are investing on that. I'm not sure that the frame conditions are completely there, I have to say. So we had the discussion also during the dinner on, role of regulator, role of other industries, because for the first time, it seems to be more a kind of a team sport. So we can't do the things alone. So I can invest in a platform. Of course, I can find a way to provide myself with batteries, etc., or semiconductors. But if you want to completely change the thing, I will need, the guys from infrastructure industry to put chargers, supercharging on the highways. I would need governments to position themselves geopolitically to get access to raw material. I would need chemical industry to come back to Europe to get, some chemical, let's say, plants to refine materials, which is right now 90% in the hands of the Chinese as a process, etc., etc., etc. So the problem right now is that Europe needs to come together, not only all the nations, but also all the industry to solve issues. There are two. One is the energetic transition and the digitalization that are actually cutting not only the functions of the companies, like it happens, but also that we see, but also cutting horizontally all different sectors and industry. And that's the biggest worry I have. That's probably one of the biggest mission I have as a ambassador of my industry in the ASEA. So I'm trying to shout, to be loud in a constructive manner, because I think that we can't give up on an advantage we built in 150 years, where, the automotive industry was the pride of this continent. We represent now 8-9% of the GDP. We employ 13 million people. Okay, so it's a big, very, very big. And we used to have until maybe 5, 10 years ago a clear advantage. All the best brands on the planet were European brands, from Ferrari to Mercedes, BMW, etc. I don't even want to mention Renault, but this kind of thing we cannot give up just because we are not able to manage that kind of transformation for a reason or another. So I think new technology will be transformative for two reasons. Is that first we'll be able to reduce the impact of automotive close to zero. Okay, so in 1 week we are opening and presenting, in the Salon de l'Automobile, a lot of new novelties on all the brands. One concept that we produce that we have is actually slashing down the cradle to grave impact of that car by 90%. So the ideas are there. We have the solution to make a product really zero impact. This is the first thing that we have to change. And the second thing is that we have to jump into the wave of, of, if you want, the internet, of the digitalization. We need to integrate the car into an ecosystem like it happened with those kind of things. And we are there, right? So, and this is going to change everything. It's the moment, that kind of iPhone moment where, we were handling Nokias with buttons and LCD green screen, and then we moved into a smart thing. The most important thing being the fact that you had the Apple Store behind, so you could charge apps, change the content of the thing, and this is what we're doing. So we can promise to the consumer completely different experience, and that's the aim of our job, is to give people, benefit, to give customer a completely new experience. And I think that the offer in the automotive industry will be much more disrupted than what we have seen the last 30 years, which was kind of incremental. And I see things that are unbelievable, and also because of the technology. People, you'll be able to speak with the cars, so the interaction will not be anymore through screens or buttons, etc., etc. The car will be able to do things that you're forced to do, not only having a kind of automatic gearbox, but the car will drive, will park, it's unbelievable what we see. I think that we don't have enough time to cover the whole thing, but let me maybe speak by slogans, and maybe later we can also focus on kind of vertical. But I use one slogan. I'm not sure. I don't know if I invented this or it was but I say always that U.S. stimulates, that China directs and plans, and Europe regulates. Okay. So we are in the middle of two let's say powerhouses, as Europe on one side, US, that is like actually pushing and stimulating entrepreneurs, the economy, etc. And guys on the other side that have a very top-down approach and directing the whole thing. What we do here is a lot of deadlines and fines. So what we are missing, and this is actually also reflected in the report from Mr. Draghi, we need a strategy. But it's not only true for automotive. I am sure that you speak with my colleagues from pharma or chemistry industry or telecommunication, etc. They will tell you exactly the same thing, right? We need a strategy before we put fines or deadlines. That's the end of the process, okay? And the strategy is also about, when you are in company, you normally do a 10 years plan, like they teach us at university, and then you do a midterm plan for 3-5 years, right? Long term, maybe 10 in our sector. And then you do the budget every year. Why do you do the budget? Because 50% of what you wrote on PowerPoint on the 10 years plan actually didn't work, right? So if that kind of mechanism of correcting what is, let's say, not wrong, what didn't go in the right direction, etc., is also very, very important. So I'm saying this because, we have very brutal deadlines that have have been decided for political reasons with a bit of a dogmatic approach without having let's say, behind a serious analysis of impact and feasibility of the thing. And, we are hitting the wall in this kind of thing. But the most important is that in the meantime, since these things were defined, there was nobody orchestrating the whole ecosystem that you need to make the value chain work. And I think that there is really a role for politicians, for regulators, for national government, for Europe, to actually force different economic actors and the science, which is also important, exactly like the Chinese do, to actually coordinate, force them to coordinate, force them. I'm not saying suggest them, I'm saying force them. There, they can bring their own legitimacy and not, only defining, okay, by 31st of December 2034, there will be no combustion engine anymore. And if you don't get there, you will be punished and I'm going to put you like 10 billion fines. That's not industrial strategy. I think that kind of sentiment is growing. I mean, I often go to Brussels, speak to some of the deciders, etc. So I think the mood is changing, it's going that direction. So I'm pretty optimistic. But we need to be quick. We need to catch up in our sector, probably one generation towards the Chinese on electric cars and kind of connecting autonomous driving cars, because they started earlier and they got organized in a very orchestrated way. So we need to do miracles to catch up and to do two generations in one. And that's the challenge that we have. I am optimistic because the mood is changing. But there's a lot of work to do if we don't want to lose maybe 8-9% of the GDP. It's a lot. I remember going back to China when they opened after COVID, and we went to Shanghai Motor Show. If I remember correctly, there were 80 new models presented. And whilst we were doing smart working, in China, you had engineers closed into plants for 8-9 months. They couldn't get home because they had to work. So in fact, whilst we were losing 2 years,
yeah.
I mean, we didn't lose 2 years because I worked every day, even in the COVID, but they accelerated, okay? And so that tells you really, the difference in terms of mindset between China and Europe right now. Okay, so we were talking about smart working, and these guys, they were, focusing and trying to conquer the world and to the best cars on the planet. I think that kind of competitive spirit, the notion of productivity, okay, the notion of value added needs to be back into the conversation, because otherwise we're going to lose it. I mean, we are 400 million in Europe. The Chinese are 1.5. Okay, so 4 times as much. They have proportionally much more engineers than we have, proportionally. I guess there's probably 400,000 engineers coming out of university every year. Okay? So 4 times, they work 70 hours a week. And here we're discussing whether we should work 32 and half of it at home, etc., etc. So theoretically, if we want to win the battle, we need to be able to do in 1 hour what a Chinese engineer will do in 8. And I can tell you, they're not stupid. That's the news. They're not stupid. So that's the challenge we have as a society in front of this. So this is a big, big challenge. So we better wake up. We better wake up. And I say this for, the young generation. I mean, I'm kind of at the dawn of my career, but I'm thinking, to leave a system that works for the young people. Yeah. And not that we become a kind of an open air museum full of restaurants and I don't think it's a good idea. I mean, one of the things, I think I'm the living proof that you can kind of build a European. No, I speak all the big, the big European big languages. I have lived in, or relived, not visited, like all the European, the big countries, including Belgium, close to the European community. When Monty was there at that time, a long time ago, I was working at Toyota. So I really feel European. I feel first of all a European because I could see how how rich is the culture of this part of the world, right? And in fact, I managed to adapt brackets to any environment, and probably this is one of the things I'm more proud of myself. I'm not very much, but is the fact that I've been able to adapt to kind of different cultures, staying within the European environment. So I really believe that the European project is still extremely valid. And we come from the generation where we've had to pay. You remember? In 92, 93, big money to actually have as an Italians to get the ticket to enter to Europe. You remember that moment when Prodi was so, and we were the generation that were trained in the time when the big guys, the Delors, they actually pushed this idea. So I'm not going to go back on this thing, and I feel that it is unfortunate sometimes with this kind of growing nationalisms, etc. Is a kind of a trick that some speculative politicians have to actually tear apart a big idea. And on the other side, for sure, Europe needs to have the courage. I mean, the European institution, they have to have the courage to take the baton and not keep the thing at the level it is today, right? Like, I don't know how to say in English, but it's a kind of a mercantile, no? It's the kind of a merchant idea of Europe. It's very easy to say, I'm from Puglia, so we do the things like this, we eat like this, etc., so we're different. And then you end up in a disaster, right? So that idea was there 30, 40 years ago. And that's also the discussion, right? And I remember we had a conversation I was in Bocconi for the International Advisory Council. And we had the honor of being at dinner with Mario Monti, who was a fine connoisseur of the thing. And he was saying, the problem, don't blame the European authorities and the thing, but blame the national governments because they have the power, right? But then we have to ask ourselves, who do we vote in the different nation? Do they have clear in mind that they have, I mean, if you want to be a leader, okay, you have hundreds of definitions of leadership. My definition has a lot to do with generosity. If the people feel that you ask themselves, them, more than you are asking to yourself, you break the balance. And these guys, they have to have the generosity to leave a little bit of their personal power and give it in the hands of an institution because you have a bigger idea behind. And this thing is missing. This is a bit philosophical, but then we can go in very concrete things. We mentioned about, we need a strategy on some sectors. We need maybe to simplify the function of the thing. European community, I'm not an expert. I just observed that as a client, kind of, okay? This is a thing, when you go there, you see a matrix with at least 5 dimensions, okay? I mean, beyond the third, you are already in the space of metaphysics. So you get the parliament, the council, the commission, the parties, the ONGs, I don't know what, so this thing has to be simplified, focused, organized in a different way for effectiveness. We probably need to vote the people that go there, even the ones that are running the show, so that there is it's fair enough, my opinion, it's fair enough that if you have 65 million French and 90 million Germans, that they have a higher weight of, with all the respect, I don't know, but the people coming from Malta. But today, the thing works for a kind of unanimity into the decision. Can you believe that? I mean, imagine if in companies you would have to decide unanimously on anything, no decision will be taken. No, sometimes I take the actually off. Yeah, I take the decision myself. Okay, so I had to cut the thing, right? Because otherwise it becomes a kind of a plateau télévisé. You never move on. And so these are many things we have to do, but we cannot, let's say, miss the point of bringing together a population, the biggest democracy on the planet in numbers, 400 million people, basically the biggest, most powerful economy on the planet, if you put all things together, probably the winners of the Olympic Games, and you will see they will be much stronger together. So, but there is a kind of a transaction that has to be made, I think. So, but we could talk about that for ages, and I do it, without arrogance, because I'm not an expert of the subject. I'm just a citizen and a convinced European. So I'm here, I'm speaking not as an expert. But you asked me a question, so I have to answer. I can talk about Made in Italy. I think it's still a very strong brand. The ambassador were telling me that we are right now fourth exporters country in the world. So, and we are a small country. So it shows how powerful is the brand itself, how much ideas, how much genius still is in Italy. And I know that the Made in Italy brand is extremely powerful per se. Okay, but this is something you have to nurture first, and as a branding expert, that you need to nurture the thing every day. You need to stick to some value. You need to confirm to the consumer every single day, every time he touches the brand, every time he touches it. So I'm not sure that, I think it comes like, let's say, a little bit spontaneously. And sometimes I thought that this thing would not be perfectly orchestrated. In fact, they have right now a ministry, for that. So it's interesting, the idea of, okay, we're gonna have a ministry doing that. I'm not sure. I don't know if they're doing a good job or they're getting organized properly. I don't want to comment, but I think the most important thing is that, again, there's a strategy behind, because as you know better than me, big brands have very deep roots.
Yeah.
Okay, and actually, even big brands have always a connection with the soil. Okay, with the ground, and if we don't nurture the roots, one day the tree will fade.
Yeah.
Okay, so everything has to do with joy of life, sun, genius, creativity, elegance, good taste, etc. These are the found. I mean, I haven't thought about the question, etc. But there might be other things. But this is what the made in Italy. When you buy an Italian car, I mean, you buy a part of the spirit. When you buy a German car, you buy it because it's techno, it's reliable, like the German system in general, and that's why you buy a piece of that thing. So it is, I mean, independently from if my competitor is going to do a good job on the next Cinquecento or the other, etc., is the whole system needs to nurture this kind of value. I remember when the thing that Bocconi gave me was a sense of the threshold, where the threshold was, because it was there. Because suddenly, coming from the province of Italy, etc., you immediately concentrate in one place some of the best kids in the country, and so the level was there. So it kind of forced me to jump high. This is, I think, the role of high academic education. That's what it's to raise the bar and to get the kids to understand the potential of their brain, right? That they can, it's actually higher than what they think, right? They have, right? Much higher, right? So I think this is the most important thing, but it's not only. And then I come to the future. it is not only about the kids for the future. It's actually about the transformation and reskilling and recharging of people that are in the mid of their career or almost at the end of their career. So we discussed that on Saturday, right? So I think we are living such a brutal transformation that we run the risk because of the technology, etc., to actually generate, as Harari, the Israeli historian, I don't know if you read some of his books, defines a generation of useless, and this is a very big risk. So people maybe in the 50s, people at end of the 40s, that they are just like completely dépassé, like you would say in French. I don't think we are short of interest, of role for institution like Bocconi, especially because I have to say this as a kind of, I do the final marketing thing is I'm engaged with the university, not so much because it's difficult for me, but I have contact with everybody, with the dean, with everybody, and I think our university, our institution is in very, very good hands. People that they know what they're talking about, they're passionate about, they know the value of Bocconi, and they are growing the institution in a very, very impressive way. So you don't only look at the number, you look at the the approach and the mindset. So I think Bocconi is going to be like this in the next years. Technological neutrality is an underpinning principle of any European legislation since ever. Okay, the way regulation were defined around automotive actually was the first time where this principle was completely neglected, because in the way the calculation was made only gave a chance, and the convention that were taken, for example, tank to wheel as a perimeter to measure the performance of the thing, actually only gives a chance to two technologies. One is hydrogen, and the other is electric cars. Hydrogen, being we're discussing on at the table, is right now very expensive. I mean, I don't want to get into a technical thing, etc., but I think it's going to come. It's going to probably come from some heavy industry, like for example steel, that needs to greenify the product. Might come into, for example, in heavy trucks, because battery technology is not totally adapted for that kind of usage. So we'll have that. But we have always preached, as a Renault, myself personally, even the ASEA as a whole, for saying, okay, tell us where you want us to go, but don't tell us how to do it. Leave it to the engineers and technicians to find creative solution to get where you want us to go. And this we will not argue. Okay, but it didn't happen so far, and right now we're facing the reality, and the debate is opening again, and maybe there is a space for going back to this basic founding principle that has always, let's say, supported any legislation in Europe, any effective legislation in Europe. I think that there is, new technology, the fact that we can get directly connected with the product, even during, the life cycle, and maybe through different ownership cycle, will give us chances to monetize. I have to say that on all the projects, that there has been a lot of declaration from some CEO colleagues, etc. But I have to say that so far we haven't seen really the benefit of this thing, right? So I don't think that we have been able to find, let's say, a way to really return on all the investment we have made for connectivity, intelligence in the cars. One day is going to come, right? I see that maybe in some professional segments, with some professional vehicle, where you can do predictive maintenance, you can extract data from the thing, you can develop services that people are ready to pay for, etc. But this is not the bulk of the business. But what you're referring to, I mean, right now most of the OEMs are not actually doing a lot of money on producing and selling the cars, the product itself. Where everybody's making money in the automotive industry is financial services, so selling money, or after sales. So in a way, we are already in that kind of direction. It's not true that you sell it once. People come back, and you have issues, and you maintain, and you have more than one cycle. And in some cases, if you're good, because it's a risky business, you also do money on used cars. This is the way the value, the business model. But it's going to change because of technology, and we are working on it. I'm not sure we're going to find a silver bullet and being able to monetize. I can't see right now the kind of similar case of I don't know, Google or YouTube or Instagram or Facebook for the automotive because of the arrival of new technology. I don't see that, but it can be. I think we can imagine in 10 years' time that we do 20% of our turnovers on mobility service, max. I probably work on more than 100 projects. More. I haven't make in probably 12, 13 brands. Okay. And I've made some. I was sometimes forced to do very boring cars, but I've always tried to keep the E of emotion into the equation of automotive. That's my signature. My signature has always been, I fight against the process of commoditization of automotive. Okay, it could be a Fiat 500, which basically was a Panda kind of reskinned. Yeah, there's a reality. Yeah, or it could be Alfa Romeo 8C Competizione, completely on the other side. So I always try to get this. I mean, we're launching these days the Renault 5. I mean, you look at the reaction of people in the street. They smile, they put a thumb on, they do a picture, etc. So that's honestly, if there is a reason why I work in this industry, is that one. Right, is to take the first car, the first prototype, get into the street, and get to see the people smile. Okay, because I'm a passionate. One of the things I like about Chinese automotive industry is that you still see some genius in the thing. You see things that are totally stupid, but actually surprising. And that kind of stupidity into the thing is not allowed by a system that is so strict with engineering rules, with financial people rule, etc., etc., and then you kill the magic. I am fighting since 32 years to avoid that this happens. Maybe in some cases I managed, in some cases no, but that's my mission in life, professional life. I always say that if people start to hate what we do, namely our product or the way they're used, then for us it's game over. So seeing, the periphery of Paris being, full at every hour of the day and the night, etc., staying 2 hours to go to the office and coming back in 2 hours to go and to come back, is not good for us, right? So if we have to kind of free the city from personal mobility, from cars, in order for the people to really enjoy still the usage of our product, it's a good thing, right? Because the worst thing that can happen is that people start to hate us. I mean, there are people that hate cars, but I can tell you, there are a lot of people that love cars, okay? And I think there is a lot of dogmatic and thinking and manipulation from some people that are fighting against our industry. But if you look at the facts, you probably will see that 85% of the movements in Europe are done by people on cars. Tendency, no matter what everybody says. And if instead of, let's say, calculating the number of movements, but the distance of how people are moving with bicycle, for example, it's actually 2% in distance. Maybe it's 5 in number. And you still have 5% of the people that are moving by bus or metro, subway for the big cities, and 5% of the people that are moving on trains. So the reality is that we function as a solution for the fact that nation states and local community have never been able in more than 100 years to organize really public transportation. So they are asking us to pay the price of a car so that we can get around. This is the reality of the thing. So all the people that tell you about, oh, we're going to move from by train. I see a lot of even very important people, ministers, mayors, etc., etc. I'm not sure they know what they're talking about, okay? And for sure, they don't have the money, okay? Because one of the challenges that we have, we always talk about the car, how much technology we're going to put in, etc., etc. If we're doing this and the connectivity and the computers, the edge computing and all the stuff. But in fact, you have to understand that the challenge that we have, that our product insists in one of the oldest infrastructure in human history. I mean, in Italy, you have streets, La Aurelia, La Casa, they have more than 2,000 years, okay? And it's always the same. It's like I'm trying to put a 8K video into a GSM phone. So it's not only the responsibility of the OEMs to do the job, okay, but it's also of other sectors to actually improve the infrastructure, okay, so that we can make the thing. How many times have you seen in Europe a couple of buildings being teared down to build another bridge or a tunnel, etc.? It never happens. Okay, so again, this is a collective thing. This is a collective thing, and we function as into a kind of void that this one. So we are paying for our transportation, and then they blame us that we're paying for our transportation because it's impossible to actually have a normal life if you don't live in the 6e arrondissement. Okay, a normal life, a modern and normal life without a car in many places in Europe. I've seen, let's say, cultures, management culture that would, let's say, put, process, rules, systems, whatever, training, this kind of thing, in front of, let's say, of everything, in front of the people. I actually, in that way, I'm a little bit like Italian, right? So I think that we come from a culture that is very humanistic, and sometimes, too humanistic, and then it's kind of individualistic kind of thing. But for sure, we, as Latin managers, we are very much focused on people first. So for me, I always come with the idea that first I have to find the good people, and then when I have good people, then everything will be fixed, kind of. Okay, and I lived in culture. For example, you work in Nissan, Japanese culture. It's a different approach. The process wins, right? The process wins on people. In Germany, the process wins on people. I don't believe on that. I am, in that way, I'm totally, Italian, etc., etc. So I think what kind of characteristic you need in the next 10 years? I think it will be more important than ever to have people that have two characteristics. One is agility, because it's going to be rock and roll, this thing. So you need people that can manage volatility. And second, you need people that are very oriented to innovation. Because maybe in 30 years' time, when the university professor will write books about this phase, I think we are in the middle of a new Rinascimento fueled by technology. Believe me, this thing is huge. What is going to happen in the next? What is already happening, actually? And right now we are a little bit like puzzled. Some old people like me are a little bit like, insecure because maybe we don't master completely. But it's a fantastic, let's say, opportunity for your generation to surf the wave, embrace the thing, because you're probably living one of the most exciting times, humanity had in the last, since we invented like printing or something like this. Okay, and you also have access to this thing, which was not the case, a few hundred years ago. So everybody can jump into the thing. So people that are orientation innovation can take risk, and people that are agile. You fall, you step, you stand up again. You fall, you adapt, you turn, etc., etc. Maybe what is the thing that always moved me and brought me where I am? I don't know if it's, but let's assume that I've made a lot of kilometers, like into the thing. But every time I got bored, annoyed, I actually changed job. And I started from scratch. So I took the risk. I mean, for example, I remember when I went out of Fiat, she remembers that. I mean, I was already into the, I was relatively young, maybe 40, something like this, but I was already in Italy a bit in the category legend, like almost a philosopher kind of thing. And then I decided to go to Volkswagen. I didn't speak even in the middle of Niedersachsen. I didn't even speak one word of German. Okay, so I felt like I was a kindergarten Schüler. Okay. And so from philosopher to kindergarten is,
Yes.
yeah. And then again I try to learn and go up. So that kind of ability to challenge continuously yourself, and in the moment you're bored, maybe you don't have to change company. Okay, maybe you can go from one place to another job, but don't accept boredom. Don't accept boredom, because you're wasting your time. I could never repeat 5 times the same thing. It's not me. You have a lot of people that can manage, much better than me. I'm not a manager. I'm a change agent. Okay? So in the moment I touch the flat ground, I need things like this or even like this. Me. So if you ask to a paranoid of change like me, that's the answer you get.